Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Deep Roots Movement. This evening, let's discuss Mecca and Medina for a second. Recently, we've seen a lot of videos pop up related to, a Christian scholar attempting to use the original Qiblas within some of the oldest masajid to prove that Petra is the original Mecca. And we've already seen attempts from people like Michael Cook and Patricia Crone to say that Islam had a different origin than we've been led to believe. Now, I'm not going into that in this video per se, but instead, I would like to discuss a different interpretation of the locations of Mecca and Medina in relationship to eschatology. Now, one of the things that's been of interest to me lately is the Dajjal, the deceiver, the liar, the deceptor, and how he relates to Nabi Nuh alayhi salam and the 40 days and 40 nights in both stories, and also in relationship to the 40 days of fasting of Tawbah and Tazkiyah within the prophetic tradition as a protective mechanism, as a cleansing mechanism. Now, it's interesting in the story, I mentioned in another video how, some of the companions, they had gone to an island, they were shipwrecked, and they'd gone to a monastery that may have been a Christian monastery or a Buddhist monastery, that they had met the Dajjal there, that he was bound, hands and feet in chains, and that he told them a few interesting things. Among them was that he could not enter Mecca and Medina. We have to question whether or not he was telling the truth about this. We also have accounts from our Nabi, peace and blessings be upon him, where he says something about the deceiver not being able to enter into Mecca and Medina. And we also know about the sword, the angel with the sword blocking the entrance to the Haram or the Haramain. I'm not sure if it's both cities or just Mecca in this instance. The same way that Adam and Eve are blocked by an angel with a flaming sword from re-entering the garden in the biblical text. So these are interesting connections. I just wanted to, bring up there. We have the story of the liar making tawaf around the Kaaba. And I neglected to mention this in an earlier video. So he's making tawaf, and so this suggests that he actually can enter there, and he was lying about not being able to enter there, and perhaps something's wrong with the chains of narration in the prophetic hadith. These are worth looking into, but regardless, there are some lessons for us to learn here. There are other ways of looking at the liar in a collective manner, as a hive mind being, and not just necessarily an individual. And we've discussed those in other videos, but we know for a fact that that in the Hijaz right now, that we see a lot of one-eyed symbolism, a lot of satanic imagery, a lot of things that are related to the deceiver and the prophecies about him, connected to the major and minor signs. For those who read, those who have eyes to see, ears to hear, a heart to feel, know, and understand. And so it's troubling to those of us who study eschatology, but it's a good kind of troubling because it pushes us to seek deeper, to seek the truth, and to look at things from different angles, because we are to be holistic thinkers. We are not to be limited by the constraints of literalism. And even with literalism, we're to dive deeply into the etymologies, into the linguistics, into the cognates. There are many ways in a literal interpretation where we can expand our view. So perhaps he's able to enter in some manner, some shape or form. Allahu alam. Now, when it comes to him being able to enter, we also know that people are being forced to alter their sacred Adamic clay and to mark up in order to go on Umrah or Hajj. This is very, very deeply troubling, because we are not to change our sacred organic clay. We're not to alter our genetics in any way, shape, or form. And when we do accidentally mutate our genetics through outside inputs, then we can go through a healing process, a purification process, in order to correct this, and that was an error. We put ourselves in an unhealthy situation. Now, coming back to the liar, so it's interesting, this concept of him making tawaf around the Kaaba, and then in the sacred precinct, and then We also have another Noah connection, because during his 40 days and 40 nights, his ark makes a tawaf around the Kaaba, around Mecca, in one of the legends. It's an interesting legend. I love the continuity of the prophetic stories. And you could argue, well, that's not a real story, that's Israeliyat, whatever it might be. It's interesting because there are connecting points. Another interesting connecting point is that Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayha salam, they both, according to some of the ancient stories, from the prophetic traditions, from the broader prophetic tradition, they made a 40-day Toba and Tazkiyah process where they went and they stood in sacred rivers for 40 days, 40 nights fasting, they engaged in psalm, and they stood in very cold rivers. So one of the stories is that Adam, he stood in the Jordan River, and also we have the story of Hawa standing in either the Tigris or Euphrates. I've also read that both of them, one was in the Tigris, one was in the Euphrates. We'll go into that in another, when we do the Adam alayhi salam series. But the whole point is we've got another 40-day connection to Toba and Tazkiyah and protection, and moving back toward the garden. Obviously, the liar is trying to take people into a virtual garden that is actually a hell realm. So he's attempting to do that during his 40 days and 40 nights of being a false caliph in the earth and corrupting the land and being a murderess and pretending to have the prophetic miracles. So this leads us back to, if he is, people believe that he's not able to enter Mecca and Medina, and that could actually make people feel that they are safe being in these locations. And that's not necessarily what the hadith is saying. So we still have to be wary of the liar no matter what. And this world is full of deception. I very much believe that we are in the day that is like a year of the Dajjal's rule. Because it's been continuing on from the beginning of 2020, even in the end of 2019, and we're still in, 2021 part 1 was 2021. We're now at the beginning of 2020 part 2. So it just keeps on building. So it's the day that is like a year in from my perspective. Allahu alam. So now in eschatology, we've got to read things from different angles and assume that we may not know exactly what the location is that a prophecy is talking about, especially if we see indicators suggesting something like the deceiver is actually present within the Hijaz, within the Haramain in some shape or form. So then we have to consider, what does Mecca mean? What does Medina really mean? When it comes to Mecca, it is not merely a location where the Kaaba is located. It's not merely an ancient trading city with the Zamzam well. Mecca has other meanings. One potential meaning that we need to consider is that all Khalifa lands, whether the capital was at Cairo, Kufa, Baghdad, Cordoba, Seville, or Constantinople, regardless of where the capitals of the caliphate have been located, they are all Meccan territory, because Mecca is the focal point for the Ummah, no matter what. All right, so the Kaaba is the focal point here in this dunya, and when we consider this, so it's a Meccan territory, no matter what. All right, if it's ruled from Medina or wherever, it's still Meccan territory. So let's go a little bit further into this. So the old Khalifa lands could still be considered Mecca in some respect. But what I think is actually more interesting is that any place that the adhan rides the winds, any place that the adhan is recited 5 times a day for our communal prayers, then automatically this is Meccan territory. Also, if we were to go out into space, we're not going to think about whether the Earth is a planet, whether it is a pear-shaped sphere, whether it is a flat Earth. That's a whole other discussion. It's an interesting one in its own respects. However, if we were to be out in space and we are going to pray, it's time for Salah, we're going, regardless of which way, no matter what, we face back toward Earth. The Earth is Mecca. We are on planet Mecca. We could call our whole dunya Mecca by default, very easily. It's even considered in some traditions to be the navel of the earth. Some considered it to be Jerusalem earlier, and then the Qibla was changed. So this is all interesting. It's worth looking into. So let's just consider that Mecca might be any place that even one Muslim is reciting the Iqama and the call to prayer. And any place that the adhan rides the winds publicly is Meccan territory. All right, now let's think about Medina. Medina means city. It's normally we think about it as the city of the prophet and the city of light, the city of lights, peace be upon him. So let's just consider, normally we think of a city as a place that has infrastructure, it has sewage systems, water lines, it has buildings. It's got churches, mosques, it's got businesses, etc. However, I would like us to consider that in reality, a city is a people. It is a group of people, a gathering of people, a people with common interests and common shared culture and behavior, or a cluster of behaviors. So anyway, it's a people. So the original name of Medina was Yathrib. Yathrib has many different meanings from what I've seen, but one of it is related to the rebellious one, and it's related to a place of idols. And our Nebi, peace be upon him, he did not like this name, and he said not to use that name any longer, all right? So we're thinking about what does Yathrib mean. When you look at the broader prophetic tradition, you look at the biblical materials, who is the rebellious one? The true rebel is always Satan. The Shayateen are the rebels. So we could look at Yathrib as being the satanic city, the city of rebellion. Now, it contrasts with Medina of the prophet, so city of the prophet. So think about this. So it's where he is located. So it's the city of light. It is the city of the prophetic realities. It is the city of enlightenment, all right? So any people in the entire world who are dedicated wholeheartedly and sincerely to the prophetic path, who are dedicated to the enlightenment path and attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all beings and protecting this creation and all within it, inshallah, to be true caliphs of the earth, then automatically we are from Medina. We are Medinans in a true sense, in a real sense. So I want us to consider this very closely. So Medina, is the city of all the people truly dedicated to the path of enlightenment, the path of the prophets, peace be upon all of them. All right, and Mecca is any place that the adhan rides the winds. Now, Allahu Alam, but this is for your consideration. Please contemplate this. Please go into sajda with this. Research it further. I'm interested in learning more, but I think this is an interesting way that we can start to read certain aspects of eschatology that we may have not fully understood. So just some thoughts, some things that I've seen in sajda and things from my research. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.